Welcome to this talk around communicating with courage and candour. Courage. It's pretty obvious that when somebody runs into a burning building or is at the front line of staff in an intensive care unit looking after a ventilated COVID-19 patient, that's courage that takes them to come into work every day. It takes courage to track down someone who may have a knife or a gun. It takes courage to go into war zones, either as a volunteer or as someone who is there because their job requires them to be there. Rather like people in the aged care industry, it's not that sort of courage that I'm talking about today. The communication that we need to have in aged care requires just as much degree of courage and this word candour that I'm going to tell you more about. I'm going to talk about everyday ways that you can look for opportunities to show up for you anytime in the communication that you're having, provided you choose to practice with courage and candour. Now, defining candour is simple. It's being frank and open with yourself and with others. So today I'm going to be sharing a couple of really simple models about courage and candour later on in the video for you to examine and consider using. I'd first like to share what these capabilities are important when leading others. Back in 2014, the Aged Care Leadership Capability Framework was released to aged care. And courage and candour was one of the categories within leading self. I'm going to share with you what that might mean for leaders who are in aged care industry. Now, it doesn't matter what level of leader you're at, there's something in there for you. So let's think about your organisation and the sort of leaders that you might have in your organisation, because it'd be different for everyone that's watching this video. I'm going to use some fairly generic terms to identify what sort of capabilities might be required at any level in an organisation from a leader. Just ask yourself, who am I seeing doing this? Who am I seeing that you'd want to have do it? And am I doing it myself? So let's take senior management first of all, whatever that means in your organisation. To show courage and candour, that frank openness, everyday courage in communicating, it's actually about confronting without delay. It's about encouraging an organisational culture where people will feel supported if they make mistakes. Now, an example in March this year is that senior management protected residents and clients by changing the visiting rules. A bold move, because we all can know that residents and families are very important in our work. We've also seen examples of senior management outside of the aged care industry with our politicians, our health departments, and just in society itself. Leaders are showing courage by not confronting, but communicating, not delaying, by looking and helping people feel supported when they make mistakes. And settling this new medium of looking through the internet at most of the things that we're doing on a regular basis at the moment, we're certainly allowing ourselves to make mistakes. So what about the next layer that the leadership capability framework has? That's for people at what we'd call a service management level. Service management could be someone who's in charge of a facility, someone who's in charge of a service within an organisation that might be larger, community or residential. Courage and candour for that level is being able to share the emotion and vulnerability to build communication with staff. It's to have a culture which encourages people to express opinions, to discuss learnings from mistakes quite openly. Now, I've got an example that is a personal one. I have challenges around getting the right dates, the right times, happening on the right day, and the right time in my diary. I call it date blindness. And when I've been running teams, I've always encouraged them to look out for that for me. I've shown vulnerability for something that really is a very, very simple thing, but I have regularly got it wrong all through my working life. Now, you might be working as a supervisor or as a care leader, and this courage and candour leadership capability applies to you too. But it's often more at a more singular level of admitting your own mistakes, being accountable for what you're doing, taking unpopular action if needed for the sake of your residents and your clients. That happened to me when I was a junior nurse. I had originally come to a country hospital from a very large teaching hospital and had been there involved with research and best practice. And I chose to challenge a very senior nurse at my new hospital within 3 days of going there because the practice was out of date. Was it popular? No. Did I get called out? Yes. Am I pleased I did it? Absolutely. It required that courage and candour, that frank openness, in order to say, this is what's right for the patient. I'd like to read you a few things out of a book called The Whole Brain Business Book. And it's about idea killers. And I reckon that you've heard a few of these. Don't be ridiculous. We've tried that before. We've never done it before. We're too small for that. That's not our problem. Why change? It's working okay. You can't teach an old dog new tricks. We did it all right without it. We don't have time. I'm sure you'll have some of those things that will be involved with you, and I need to give you an opportunity now to have some models. First model I want to share with you is by a guy called Bill Treasurer. And Bill, in 2019, came up with a very simple way to be courageous at work. And he came up with 3 buckets of courage. So I want to share with you what those 3 buckets are. And just think as I'm going through that, is there an opportunity that you might have missed simply because you used some of those idea killers that I read out just a moment ago? And what would you do if you came up against it in the future? Now, Bill's first bucket of courage is the try bucket. It's the courage of first action, of pioneering those first attempts when other people have not yet gone there. It's often associated with having initiative, with leading. Now, how often have you heard your supervisor say to you, it's time to step up, it's time to be accountable, time to try something different? And that takes courage because you have to overcome inertia, that we've always done it this way. Now, there are some risks to trying, inevitably. Your actions might harm others, they might harm you, but sometimes doing nothing harms as well. Now, Bill's second bucket of courage is the trust bucket. That's the courage of trusting and relying on the actions of others. Remember, I talked a bit about that, about the service manager, showing that degree of vulnerability, that ability to create a culture where you listen to other people's opinions. It's about being receptive and open. It's about following when people offer you something that you can trust. And sometimes it's about trusting without really knowing why you're trusting. It's definitely about letting go of control. And what are some of the risks associated with it? Well, somebody might get harmed. Other people's actions might harm you. But if we don't trust, then what are we doing? Are we living in a life of distrust? When I show you the next model around candour, you'll see what that could mean. The third bucket of courage is the bucket of tell. This is the bucket that I used back as a junior nurse. The courage of having a voice and truth-telling. It's associated with asserting your own opinion and inviting others to examine it and see whether it would be the right opinion for that time. Now that requires conviction. It requires you coming to the front. You're saying, look at me, I may have something that's of use for you to hear. It's exposing your opinions. And that might make you stand out from the crowd. Now, some of you who are in care worker positions will go, too difficult to do. But nothing will change unless we tell. So you select one of these 3 buckets. Think about something that has happened to you in the last few days and say, What would have happened if I had used the try bucket, the trust bucket, or the tell bucket? Would it be different? Maybe, maybe not. Now I'm going to share with you a slide that's about candour. And you can see here on this slide that there are some orange words and there are some black words. So let's take first of all the arrows that say under the orange word of care personally. It's not enough to only care about someone's ability to do a job. To have a good relationship, you have to be your whole self and care about each of the people that work for you and work with you as human beings. It's not just business, it's personal, and sometimes it can be deeply personal. We spend a lot of time with the people that we're at work. And the other orange one that goes from side to side is the challenge directly. And challenging directly is delivering hard feedback. It's about making the hard calls about who does what within a team and holding a high bar for results. Challenging people is often the best way to show them that you care. If you use both of those, caring personally and challenging directly well, then you will be in that space of radical candour. But let's look at the other three quadrants first and see what happens when you use those. I'm going to first talk about the quadrant that's at the bottom lower right. That's called obnoxious aggression. Care factor 0. Challenging directly all the time. Defensive. Fighting disrespect with disrespect. It's got to be done my way or the highway. We've all worked with people who are like that, who have very simplistic opinions, and for hours on ends they'll ridicule anyone who disagrees. And they'll generally foster a divisiveness within the team, fighting disrespect with disrespect. Well, we might think that if you care personally for people, but you don't challenge, then that's okay, because you're avoiding hurting other people's feelings. But you know, that's still ignorance for that part of that person who may be doing something wrong. They might keep on doing something wrong. They might never improve. And that could actually lead to them maybe losing a job. Now you can say to yourself, it's only for a few more hours. We're short of staff. Let's keep going. But you know, that doesn't actually help things. Yeah, you're empathetic to the situation that somebody else might be in, but it doesn't help long term. And what about this manipulative insincerity? Silence, keeping quiet. You know, that's passive aggressive, backstabbing. I'm not saying anything. I'm only here for the money. It's time I went on leave. Shouldn't be here. You know, that silence of being liked even, wanting to be silent to fit in, or even as a self-defense. Mistrust, no change, nothing happens. When you have that failure to challenge and failure to care. So what is this radical candour really all about? It's about not judging or naming people if they are in those other quadrants. It's about inviting, respectful, confrontational, whatever that conversation around courage and candour is. It's about trusting so we can have profound and fundamental change. It's about asking things like, we've got new ways of working now. Can you help me understand them? Can you share with me what happened just now? Sometimes it's about knowing the game that you're in, the working game with the team that you're in. And everybody in the team can have their own game, but sometimes there are rules that we have to follow. So wouldn't it be like if we could follow one of the three buckets of courage and practice radical candour as much as we possibly can by caring for the people we work with and for choosing to challenge directly in a way that they will hear it and not become defensive. Thank you for listening to the video today. If you'd like to know more about the Above and Beyond group, 402 272 868, please email me on arlene@aboveandbeyondgroup.com.au or on my mobile 0402 272 868.